Okay, welcome to the 2026 Astrology Planning Workshop. My name is Jynnette The Oracle, and I am excited today to share with you the astrological environment that we will be seeing not only next year, but also for the next few years. The focus for this particular workshop is going to be strictly on the nodes, the eclipses, Jupiter, and Saturn. I will briefly mention at the end the other planets as well. But because the energy is very much encapsulated by what is happening with these planetary bodies, the other planets essentially are enhancing that rather than providing a necessarily very different environment. Although you'll also find that a lot of their influences are in part of the interpretations that I have. But yeah, the year is skewed very heavily to um, to these energies, so it will keep the focus short and sweet, actually, which I think will be very helpful rather than having a necessarily busy year. But I think that is actually par for the course given the energy, as you will see. So let's get into it. One last thing I will say as well. Um, I am going to be providing some entrepreneurial insights as well with this. If you would like to go deeper for your particular business, then you can obviously book a session with me because, it needs to be within the context of the type of work that you are doing, products and services you're offering. But I would do provide a little bit of that in here to just kind of give you a sense of, again, what you may be navigating. And I believe that is it. All right, so let's go. And if you have any questions as I'm going through this, feel free to pop them in the chat and I will answer them. But again, keep personal questions until we get to the Q&A because that part won't be recorded and I'll be able to keep that separate. All right, so let's talk about an overview for the year. So first off, let's talk about the numerology because I know everyone is into the numerology. So in terms of Vedic astrology, this is actually a year associated with the sun. So 2026 is a 1 year. 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 6 is 10. 1 plus 0 is 1, and we have the 1 year. But that specifically is connected to the sun. And of course, the sun is, and one itself also correlates to new beginnings, beginnings of new cycles. So you're going to be hearing that a lot, obviously. Independence as well. So a lot of like, revolutionary individual or separate energy, as well as the self. So the person, your ego, your intellect, your personality. So this coupled with the sun as ruler, and we're having new zodiac cycles for both Saturn and Neptune beginning in Aries. We've been inundated with like the ending with Saturn, Neptune, and Pisces, and we're still at the tail end of that, but we will be starting a new cycle with these two. Plus, in Chinese astrology, we are having a fire horse year, okay, which is very, very powerful, but not necessarily the most restrained. But the main themes essentially are going to be passion, whether positive or negative, drive and motivation, ego slash personality and individual self, as well as progress and innovation. These pretty much are going to be underscoring, again, whether that is looked at positively or negatively, the environment that we're going to be in, as well as what we will see rising up within ourselves. If you are someone who is very sensitive to the energies, you probably are already starting to feel it and have been feeling it for the past month or so, because Spirit has been doing a lot of clearing. Um, you may have also been experiencing a lot of divine chaos. I'll put it that way. In the form of, the Mother Goddess coming through to really clear out people's situations and things, to make way for this new energy. It's like a purifying fire, so to speak. But that's like a purifying fire for clearing. And this is a different type of fire, which is the creative new beginning fire. The other thing that we'll see overall this year is new cycles for Uranus into Gemini. as well as obviously we still have Pluto and Aquarius, but we'll be starting to see some trines happening between these two planets, which I think will be really yummy, as I like to say. And we're going to have Jupiter transiting into Leo. So it's still in Cancer, but it's going to be transiting into Leo. But what's interesting with this is that that's going to be later on conjuncting the South Node. So very, very interesting vibes. So what's my take on this? On the positive side of things, the emotional headlock, as I'm calling it, that we've been experiencing this past year, we'll feel that that really has broken off. And again, if you are sensitive, you're probably already starting to see evidence of that, both in your internal experience as well as your life. And the fire of our courage, our sense of self-worth, standing, 10 toes down on ourselves and what we're about and what we bring to the table, being, much stronger and growing. Our creative curiosity, being willing to play and to take risks, is going to increase. And our hope and faith for possibilities in the future will definitely be off the charts. And not in a nostalgic looking back, reclaiming the past, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but really looking forward and being like, okay, what can be created? So the possibilities in the mindset of all in general will be there. We'll be standing up for ourselves collectively and our beliefs with a very unshaken resolve. That's all that fire energy and very much going after our desires, very motivated to get what we want, whether that's good for us or not, but it's going to be there. And this bodes well, again, collectively for collective action and justice initiatives. So expect to see an uptick in that. And this is across the board. So this could be collective action within the family to address and deal with some issues that have been long-standing that need to change in, certain dynamics, right? It could be at work. Y'all could be, unionizing or something. So across the board. Definitely career and business moves. People are going to be looking to, regardless of like, depending on where you are, what the job market is looking like. There's definitely going to be a push to make moves, promotions, lateral moves, start businesses, pivot businesses, take a business from being a hobby to being something that actually like you can live off of, getting out of business and going into career because you actually prefer that structure. Just a lot of shifts and moves around work and career. IRL experiences are going to be huge as well. There's a deep pull that's coming in for direct experience, whether that's of people, places, things, what have you. So expect to see more of that. Um, a good example of this would be Netflix's, I think they're calling it Netflix House, that just is going to be opening soon in Texas somewhere. I don't know if it's this year or next year. But yeah, like it's so things like this, we'll probably start to see companies doing as well, but in general, more of those. Also, of course, my favorite thing, a lot of creative development, personal development, and spiritual development because of the fire energy. Fire is, archetypally associated with spirit as well as with creativity and the self. So all three of those areas, self-help, wellness, spirit, will definitely be points of interest this year. Both, again, collectively as well as internally, whatever that's going to look like. And we're going to see a lot of innovation happening outside of establishment. So, obviously, one of the things that we have been watching globally is a bit of closing of the gate and resource holding from establishment in various contexts. But with the various options and technology and the way, things have just shifted and changed over the last, 20 to 30 years, there's a lot more opportunity for people to create their own groups, to create their own. So you're going to see a lot more of folks, groups, companies, whatever, rising up to kind of to stand in the gap or meet the needs that are not being addressed by whatever it has been established or what is being hoarded. Okay, so I actually expect there to be a nice proliferation happening there. So that's the positive side of things. On the negative side, um, collectively, we will be very much entrenched in what we feel is right. So when I say being 10 toes down, 10 toes down. So it'll be a little bit more difficult to be able to discern that difference between our primal reactionary, almost tribal instincts and our spirit, our good sense, our measuredness, our inner mastery, etc. So, obviously, those who have been cultivating that practice will have a better time being able to handle this and be standing in integrity for what is authentic for them. But for others, this is very much going to be bold behavior. I'll just put it that way. We'll be prone to reacting rather than responding, right? And believe that the end justifies the means, regardless of the consequences of those means. And that is very much the Aries energy. Um, I know that, folks think that on the surface, because Saturn is going into Aries, that will kind of quell that. But you have to remember that Saturn is in fall in Aries, meaning it's at its weakest there. So its influence is not going to be as strong as it would be in other signs, like its exaltation in Libra. So this definitely is going to be coming up. So the tendency or the propensity to just want to like blow up at someone, to burn a bridge, to, just go full dragon, will very much be there. I'm saying this to myself because I know myself. Will very much be there because it's just like, fuck it. But yeah, be mindful of this. In general, this is going to bode well for military conflicts. I do expect this in particular, not this year, not just this year, but also for the next 2 to 3 years with Saturn here, to actually increase or to get worse for whatever situations are already ongoing. Continued socioeconomic exploitation. So that, again, resource holding, um, just that exploitation aspect very much is going to be more the thing because, again, the end justifying the means. Also, another thing, religious fanaticism is going to rise. I expect that to rise a bit this year. So this, um, what I was talking about earlier about standing 10 toes down and something that you feel is absolutely right. I see very much coming in strong as it relates to our spiritual beliefs. So this obviously won't just be showing up in, you know, Christianity, but also the other faiths. So I do expect there to be a flare up of, conflicts between or in the region of India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, like the Muslim Hindu thing. Like I see that popping up. I see a lot actually of um, indigenous and governmental or government or secular conflict popping up for China. And of course, the white Christian nationalism here. I definitely continue to see, I mean, it's already been in process, but yeah, this is going to be coming in strong. I feel this year, so just as a heads up. But this also goes for, again, the indigenous faith. So this can show up as like, this is the one true path, or, this is the only way to do things. And, it's just a lot of hard line kind of energy. So it seems like an odd juxtaposition, but it's a broader way that the self-identity gets distorted in this space. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the notes. Let's shift out of that energy. All right, so as you know, I pay attention always, first and foremost, to the nodes. But as a quick review, the North Node is where your soul and collectively where the energy is creating desires. In Vedic astrology, the North Node represents the dragon's mouth, so it's where you're wanting to eat. It's where you're consuming what you're going after. This is the place where you're going to, in general, see opportunities pop up. This does not guarantee that you will get, what you want or the opportunities there. But it is saying that, like, hey, it's a free for all. So get into the game, play the game, because that's going to create the highest probability for you to get the thing. If you're not engaged, like, you're just not going to get it, right? So that's the vibe here. Particularly, though, you do want to pay attention to the house that the North Node is transiting because that is going to be specific to your relevant area of life. And a transit happens for, a year and a half. So there could be a couple of things that come up for you. This, excuse me. The South Node, though, is where essentially the universe is going to be exposing and bringing to the surface any type of negative influence or hindrance to your progress. So this can be unconscious, subconscious stuff like family members, um, backstabbing friends, sabotaging beliefs, poor money management. Like, it can run the gamut, but the things that pop there up there, while they may be surprising at times, they should not surprising in like how they pop up. The fact that they are popping up should not be a surprise because they should be familiar. Um, so that's on the development side of things. Now, in general, on a natal chart level, as a reminder, your South Node is where you already have mastery. So when this transit is happening for the South Node, you will also have stability in those areas where you're already strong as it relates to the sign that that's in. So you won't have to like feel like you're learning new lessons there. You actually will naturally shine in those places. So you may actually have some unexpected boons here. It's not just clearing and release. It is also a place of what has already been mastered bearing fruit as well, and possibly opening doors for you for wherever the North Node area is. Okay. So, where are we going to be with the nodes? So, right now, and moving into the first half of the year, we are still under the influence of the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo, but that will be shifting to Aquarius and Leo. So, this past year, and again for these next 6 months, um, we've been seeing this, and I talked about this in my, well, not talked about it, but I wrote about it in the North Node in Pisces blog that I put out the end of last year, I believe. So feel free to go back and review that. But yeah, hidden enemies and hidden truths being exposed, and there's been a whole slew of that happening this year, right? I think we this is the year we started off with Cat Williams' interview, right? Listen. Also higher self-reliance or just self-reliance coming through more. And not even so much in the, Aries kind of energy, but more so a everything is chaotic and stripped, and I'm having to really face and look at what remains true in the midst of change because it's all mutable energy, right? And so that underlying truth, that underlying stability, that underlying changelessness, um, that the awareness of that is essentially is what the kindling is and the spark is for this Aries energy and the fire in general that we're moving into. We've also been addressing values. What do you really believe? What are you really about? What do you really stand for? Again, through various contexts. We have been forced to surrender to things outside of our control, and that has brought up all sorts of emotions and existential questioning. We've been, in particular for business, really thinking about what makes us unique, right? And we've had to really have some hard conversations with ourselves and with others about, where do we go from here now that we see the truth. But moving forward, the shift now is going to be for the removal of leaders and or influencers, just anybody in a public space being removed from their position. Whether they're actually being removed by others or they're removing themselves for, whatever reason. But usually it's because of like bad stewardship or something. Then there's also going to be a shift to exploring more spirituality because of what I was talking about with the the awareness of that which is unchanging. Also, taking up space in established structures. So there's going to be an interesting shift, I believe, for in two camps. So one, folks essentially choosing to abandon what they consider to be the status quo and building something outside of that to, again, fill the gap, fill the need that's not being met by establishment. But I think there's also going to be a very distinct other group of folks who are like, you know what, I actually want to take up space in these um, established places and spaces and be that unmoving light and actually not give any more ground. So it's really just going to depend. We will definitely be overall much more able to move on quickly and adapt when things, I don't want to say when things don't go well because that's been a lot of the focus this year. It's more so about the intelligence of determining when to shift once the energy for something has started to dissipate rather than trying to keep with it. Because all this fire energy is not sustained energy. Like it's not a Leo kind of energy for the year because it's heavy Aquarius. Leo is kind of there, but it's like, it's South Node. So, yeah, moving on from things quickly. So, for those of you, us, who like to stick with the same things, and feel odd, like jumping from different things that we haven't like spent a lot of time on, what have you, this might feel a little uncomfortable because we might feel fickle or like we might be worried about how we're being perceived with that. Much more open to experimentation and risk taking within, bounds. A lot more idealism and charisma, particularly for leadership, and really focusing on purpose in work, in life, very much coming through. And again, like I said, innovation. Just for you to know for your chart, the degrees for this first part of the Aquarius transit for the nodes is going to be from 29 to 21. So basically the one full decan. Okay. So then that leads to the eclipses because the eclipses match to the nodes in general. So when we have a new moon solar eclipse, that's the beginning of a 6 month period where we're going to feel in general, or there's an opportunity to go after a goal related to that house in our chart. So the one that's coming up at the beginning of the year is February 17th. That's at 28 degrees of Aquarius. This is a North Node eclipse. So basically, from that 6 month period, um, wherever 28 degrees Aquarius is in the chart, you can figure out, a goal or goals that you would like to pursue there, if it's relevant. Like you don't have to, but it's there. The other cycle will be happening in August at 20 degrees of Leo, and that will be a South Node eclipse. Okay. So again, part of that clearing, not necessarily new, but also a standing on what you already have mastery in. Okay, so those are the two new cycles. So February and August. This February one, like the whole first Q1 is just going to be so active astrologically, but it'll be chiller later in the year. Closing cycles are the full moon lunar eclipses. So this one that's coming up on March 3rd, 12 degrees Virgo, this one is the one that's closing the current cycle that we're in. So we had a new moon eclipse, I believe, in September, right around the autumn equinox. So we're under that influence. And then the August 27th one, that's going to be closing the February 17th cycle. Okay, so these are just like, endpoints for dates for you if you want to specifically have like a deadline for something that you might be focused on. Okay, but essentially the same themes coming up that I mentioned before, coupled with your understanding of the house that it's occurring in, provides you information about how you may or may not want to use that eclipse. Now, for entrepreneurs, what does this nodal energy mean and look like for you? Some notes that I have. So, you may choose to step down or step aside in your business. Or there may be a push to oust you or a partner in order to have better leadership in place. Essentially, I expect there to be a lot of questioning of what makes a good leader, who is most qualified, am I showing up as, the leader I need to be, i.e., the business person I need to be for this role, or do I serve best in something else and need to have somebody else there? Like, there's going to be a lot of that. So be prepared for it. It may just, again, be starting slightly now, but expect that to come up very strongly later on. This, of course, may be very important for you to pay attention to if you are in an actual business partnership. Okay. Becoming more the figurehead and firmly establishing thought leadership. So this year and moving into next year as well too is very much going to be about you stepping into steward leader um, role essentially. That doesn't necessarily mean, influencer, but again, wherever in those areas you need to grow in terms of how you run your business or how you may or may not be getting in your own way is going to be coming up there. In general, in terms of, customers and what they're looking for, complexity, customization, innovation, all are valued right now. Okay. Things that people feel are really valuable for what they're getting. Valuable, not necessarily meaning like, oh, I'm getting more stuff, but like, quality is there, or this is very intricate, it's really deep, or this is customized to me. Those types of things will help you stand out within the market. Okay. Also, because of the advancements in technology, if you do not have a streamlined customer experience, please get that in play because that will be one of the quickest ways to to lose brand confidence. Okay? Like if your clientele is having to jump through hoops to give you money, okay. Um, as I mentioned earlier about the pivoting, being able to pivot quickly, as we've known for this past year, is a skill that hopefully we have mastery now. So being able to do that is going to be important. So, when it comes to planning what to do, things that don't necessarily require a lot of investment, or don't, again, require a long sustained effort, might be good to look at for bringing in additional revenue or revenue streams. Okay. Having a clear political stance and vision and mission. Whereas before you might have strayed away from, stating this clearly about where you stand due to how polarized and polarizing is going to continue to be with this energy. Um, the clearer and the more out front of this you can get, the better it will be. It's better to take the lead in the conversation rather than having to be called out for having the discussion. Um, Technology and connection versus with perspective versus demographics, and less importance on influencers and more expertise and charisma. So what do I mean by this? So, the looking at the verbiage, I'll say the language that gets used has been very community oriented, right? Which relays a lot of emotional and heart connection. And obviously that will still be there, but there will be a rise of affiliation due to perspectives going beyond demographics. Okay. Which again is another reason why having a clear stance, vision, mission is helpful because people will be looking for like-mindedness, like spiritness, rather than like feelingness, just because of again the astrological energy. The influencer thing, obviously influences aren't going away, but there's going to be a shift to those who have both the charisma, i.e., they just have a personality. Not that they're showing up as somebody else, but they are themselves, as well as they have expertise rather than just, oh, I'm here creating. Okay. Now, let's talk about Saturn. So we are still in the experience of Saturn, but that is going to be shifting, thank God, into into Aries in February. Excuse me. Okay. So with Pisces, this has been a focus on big endings. So this might have been losing a job, loss of relationships, loss of friendships, loss of confidence, honestly. Just a lot of, again, those big life-changing things, asking those big existential questions when you're dealing with heightened states of survival and societal instability. A return to spirituality, because Saturn does definitely support that for sure, and confronting power, because Saturn does deal with power, whether that is being used, abused, or misused, used well, used poorly, but power in general, and the governance on that, and your position as it relates to those who hold more or less power than you. Okay. Now getting into Aries will be through like April of 2028. This is going to be a rise of a continued rise, because we've already been saying it, but continued rise of authoritarianism. Okay, because again, this is a fall position for Saturn. Okay. A lot, especially when it comes to government across the board globally, not just here in the US, a lot of polarizing initiatives, laws, etc., coming up. This is something you also see with, because Aries is very much related to, um, again, on the negative side, like, aggression and fighting, but a lot more focus on the physical body. So you might find not even so much on a health kick, but just a desire to want to be strong. There might be an uptick in martial arts interests, as well as military actions. Okay. The IRL experience, as I mentioned, excuse me, before, is definitely coming through with this particular transit from my perspective. Okay, it's like that grounded, in person. I want to feel, I want to have direct experience, that charges that Aries energy. So I see that becoming much more important. Um, that rebellious energy very much coming through. Now, whether that is rebellion for the good of all or tantrum is, going to be person specific. I do see, though, with this position, an embrace of power. So, whereas with Saturn and Pisces, there might have been a hesitancy to handle power or to step into a certain kind of role or the ideas of um, what that looks like. I don't see that being as much of an issue for folks this year. Again, whether they handle it well or not is to be seen, but definitely an embracing for that. Also, a difficulty foreseeing the future. And the reason I put this here is because Aries does not do long-term thinking. I love you, Aries, but it really doesn't. So, and especially with Saturn being here in fall, even though it is like, ruling over time and karma, I think there actually is going to be difficulty planning in general, but also being able to project things. So that's why I think um, understanding these constraints will make things easier for you, I believe, in terms of what you choose to do in your personal life as well as in business. Additionally, because Neptune is going to be joining Saturn here in January, the added arenas of media and entertainment, spirituality and imports and exports are going to be showing up in the mix as well with this. So for entrepreneurs, what does this mean? This is a situation where now that you have, gone through the 2025 upheavals, really now considering, okay, based on the industry that I'm in and the trends that I'm seeing, what impact can I expect to see due to oncoming government policies? Because one of the things that we will, and this isn't a foreseeing aspect, but it's more so oh, this is what it has been. So, um, and it's not necessarily going to be anything new. So, based on what things have been and the trend that's happening, what can I expect the impact to be, and then how do I navigate that? Again, with the in-person events, if that's something, depending on your type of business that you choose to do, that might be something that is viable for you. Again, it's not going to be for everyone, but it might be a situation where you just might be called to do more um, in-person networking, possibly, possibly, right? Um, Specifically with the in-person events, just remember that these, if you are doing those, they are to market. They don't help you realize goals because of the enormous amount of cost that they require. Like they're a marketing tool, to be clear. Networking alliances with power players. This is going to be that year for doing such things. Okay. Um, I don't know why I have possessive players, but okay. That quote's in the wrong place, but it's all right. Um, but yeah, so being bold and courageous for connecting to folks that you know and can see are in positions of power, whatever that is going to mean, depending on your context, and going after that, creating connections with them, speaking to them, possibly trying to do collaborations with them is going to be something that is favored during this time. Plan for technological disruptions. Okay. With the amount of resource hoarding and consolidation, as well as environmental impacts, I do expect, especially with Uranus going into Gemini this year and all the trines happening with Pluto and the heightened solar storm activity, that technology disruptions are going to be a little bit more apparent this year. So thinking about what that means in terms of, backup plans, access to materials, redundant platforms or systems that you can have to still reach your customers, etc., is something to be considering this year. Okay. Or if you already have a lot of those things in place, to make them more robust or at least review those things and maybe create an SOP for that, for how you handle things and what you will communicate to your clientele, and your workers if you have employees. Always keep an eye out for technological advancements that are going to streamline your workflows. This doesn't mean that you have to do and implement and integrate everything, but you know your business. So those things that actually will help you reduce costs and improve your pliability and adaptability to shift when things shift will do well for you. Negotiate well in your contracts. Saturn rules contracts. People are going to be out here for themselves. So this is across the board. So don't think this is just business or career. This is, friendships, this is partnerships. Everybody is responsible for themselves first and foremost. So please, please, please negotiate well for yourself, and then you can consider others. In general, and this is the high point, I think, for the year, the marketplace is actually going to be quite vibrant this year. Even though it's may seem chaotic, it's actually going to be very busy. There is an opportunity to either rebound if you've had a retraction, or at least to maintain this year if you are in business. Okay. I don't expect to see folks retracting unless they really are needing to pivot out or pivot into something else. But yeah, there is going to be a lot of vibrancy and activity happening just in general within the marketplace, within your industry, just overall. even in the midst of the chaos. So please hear me. There is opportunity. It is there for you. Show up and take it because the ones who show up and take it are going to get it. All right. And last planet, Jupiter. All right, so we've had in 2025 Gemini and Cancer transits for Jupiter. So that's been focused on education, so teaching, training, certifications, etc., developing skills, whether or not that's been related to a certification. Possibly some travel might be more like, visiting places locally in your city versus long distance, depends. Obviously, a lot of technology proliferation, which we've been seeing a lot of changing circles. The amount of folks coming in and out of friendships, coming in and out of relationships, fallouts at work. Like it's been, I wasn't expecting that with Jupiter, but it's been interesting. Also, a lot of people moving, which I also was not expecting. But yeah, that's been showing up too. And that's the Cancer influence. Now, the grief and nostalgia, been a lot of grief, a lot of looking back. Politically, this has been the helping to amplify the MAGA thing of like, back when America was great. It's just like that cloud of nostalgia hovering. This also has been a return to conscious awareness of the ancestors, if that's been stagnant, as well as the quote unquote, and I say really truly in quotes, divine feminine principle and spirituality, as well as finding and building community that has been very strong this year. Now, for next year, we'll continue with some of those themes, the Cancer themes, but we will be entering into Leo on July 1st, just in time for summer season and my birthday. So this is going to be enhancing again all of that fire energy of stepping into the spotlight, being seen. Um, and again, stepping into the spotlight is not like, oh, I'm going to be an influencer or whatever. It's just being much more outwardly seen in your world, in your context, whatever that is. Okay. Speaking up more, sharing your perspective more, just being who you are, just because, not because you're trying to change anyone or trying to be seen a certain way, but it's very much so like this is me, this is who I am, and I don't dim my light kind of vibe. So Jupiter will be helping with that. Charisma will be high, sensuality will be high. Very much on that side of like, I like nice things. I like to feel good. I like good food, like very fixed energy vibes, which we love. Um, Seeking and exercising power again. So we have Saturn in Aries with this, and now we have Jupiter in Leo with this about the power. But this is actually seeking it out. So it's going to be driving that energy. A lot of spiritual curiosity here. Um, Now, again, this can lead to that religious fanaticism depending on where you are, but it's there. Prospecting. So this is a really interesting quality that I see probably more so becoming more prevalent in Q4 rather than most of the year, which is really more so about like trying to see where a bigger step could happen and could take place and where you might get support for that. So I don't really see, I think because of that Saturn and Aries influence kind of dimming the ability to project um, and perceive the future. I don't think it's going to be quite clear most of the year what some of the step after next is going to look like, if that makes sense. But I think that will start to become clearer in the fall and moving forward. Once we're a little bit more into this Leo energy with Jupiter, and we're in that second eclipse cycle, like I mentioned. And as I talk about later, we're gonna have Venus going into Scorpio. So I think that will be easier because Scorpio will bring that depth of like really piercing through the veil. Opulence and wealth is going to be a thing. Again, your experience of that, whatever that is, because that may or may not include more money, but again, it's the focus on pleasure and sensuality. Again, with the power players, Leo. and an increase in that clicks, tribal mentality, xenophobia, increasing as well. Okay, unfortunately. For entrepreneurs, as you know, Leo, work on the self, break free of any habits or beliefs that are preventing you from showing up as a business owner. I keep bringing it up because it just keeps coming up. Like this, the same themes this year. So the show starts and stops with you. Everything is your fault and everything is your responsibility. But with great responsibility comes great rewards. So show up. The focus also is to highlight the distinction, as I had mentioned like earlier on about what makes you different in terms of the products and services you offer. So there is going to be a need to clearly assess in general what's offered in the industry, what's offered from those comparable to you, and answers the question, why should someone buy from you? And it's not even a why buy from you versus someone else, because we live in an abundant world and they can do both. It's why also buy from you. What else is being got there? And keep it simple, right? Like we go to the grocery store, we go to the bread aisle, and there's so many different brands of bread, but we're gonna get certain types of bread depending on what we're making, right? So if you are multi-grain, high fiber bread, your distinction, who you're going to be speaking to, needs to be clear for those who are specifically looking for that, right? It seems mundane, but you'd be surprised when I'm working with folks how difficult this is, but it's okay. Take the time to plan for and start taking action on bigger financial goals. So these can be, many things. This could be becoming profitable. This is actually a big thing for me, and I think actually should be the number one thing to consider. Sustaining revenue, especially if it has been volatile or inconsistent. Maybe increasing units sold if you have a product-based business, like, whatever the goals are, but the Jupiter energy this year is going to help with this, especially that second half of Cancer energy. Cancer is great with business, so um, with this Aries energy, this will be very helpful. Again, networking and alliances with power players, very much supported at this time. Um, while Jupiter's in Leo, you might still be trying to network and ally yourself with folks that you are emotionally connected with. But I would advise you not to lead with that. Um, I would suggest leading with connecting with those who are aligned to your values, not whether or not we could be besties or friends. Okay. Depending on who you are, your chart number, that might be easier or harder than, other ways. And leverage news and entertainment outlets. So this might be you doing podcasts. This might be you becoming more visible on social media. This might be you doing more writing. Maybe you start a Substack. Um, this could be you being interviewed on a local news channel. Like it's whatever avenues there are for media and entertainment, whether visually, sonically, written word, what have you. Um, use those again as they are relevant to you um, for your business. All right, so to close, because I still want to have time for a Q&A. Other things of note for this year. First off, as we come into 2026, we're in the middle right now, actually, as we're doing this workshop, of a string of, I think it's 6 new moons, all at 28 degrees, starting from the Libra new moon, going through the Pisces new moon. So if you remember at the beginning of 2025 or so, we had 4 consecutive new moons in um, at 9 degrees. And so it was starting from Capricorn, went to Aquarius, Pisces, and in Aries. So that might have been a kind of uptick in energy and things flowing for you at the beginning of the year. But now, again, from Libra through Pisces in March, all the moons are at 28 degrees. So this may or may not be having an effect on your life. I mean, this is basically like half of the chart, half of someone's chart. So I think with this energy, you probably see a very deep transformation occurring, especially since it's at a late degrees. So yeah, so there's that. In Q1, so January, February, March, other things that are going to be happening that I just want to mention that are important is we will have the Venus superior conjunction. So that is basically um, the Venus on the opposite side of the sun. So we're not seeing Venus, but essentially where she is in the sky, she's lined up with the galactic center, and she's going to be making her way back to Earth, Earth's view, and start circling back to like the zodiac signs that we can see her in. But this is a really potent infusion of energy for Venus to be bringing back. So I'm really super excited for that. We also will have Venus conjunct Mars, and Mars will be starting a new cycle in Capricorn at 18 degrees. And that's all happening in January, I think, like within the first week. So the first week of January is going to be very busy. So, just a few weeks out there. And then also in the first quarter, we'll be seeing the North Node conjuncting all the personal planets. So there may be some additional kind of boons or blessings or opportunities, healing, just feeling good, heart-opening experiences that you may be having. Q2, which is going to be, of course, April, May, June. This is when we have the Uranus and Gemini cycle beginning. This is an 8-year cycle, so we won't talk about this for the year, but that influence is officially starting. So we had the first kind of toe dip into it last year or this year, 2025. And then we'll have the first grand air trine with the Sun, Uranus, and Pluto. Q3, we're having the Grand Air Trine happening again, but this time it's going to be happening around the autumn equinox, so like just after that, a couple days. And then in the last quarter, October, November, December, we have the Venus in Scorpio cycle beginning. So the superior conjunction is basically the halfway point of the Venus cycle. The Q4 cycle is going to be the inferior conjunction. So that's going to be the beginning of a new cycle. So that may, if you have a real strong connection to Venus, that may be something that you want to pay attention to. Or if you have a Venus rule chart, etc. Also, as you know, Mercury always retrogrades in the same elements every year. So this year, the retrogrades are in water signs. Okay. So they are in water signs. All right. So that is our kind of overview for 2026. Um, I will now pause the recording so I can do Q&A with those who are actually here live, but that will, has to be kept private. But like I said, if you would like to um, go deeper into the astrology of next year and get specifics for your chart, you can, of course, book a session at the website. All the information is here for you. And, obviously over the holidays, timing will be limited, but get in where you fit in. And like I said, every week, as you know, every week I update my availability for the week ahead. So, something will work. But I encourage you to keep this in mind, use this as a reference throughout the year, use it as a way to help ground you and to not be diluted in your focus because this is probably again, as quote unquote active as it may seem because of the fire energy, it's actually going to be a very simple year, I believe, to navigate. And the biggest thing I would say to do is to trust yourself, okay? Because spirit is definitely leading you. Alrighty, with that being said, I will sign off for the live folks or sign off for the recording folks, and let's get to the Q&A.